All right, good afternoon. My name is Mari Bergeron, and I'm here from EBSCO Information Services in the United States. I have worked with EBSCO for 12 and a half years. Okay, and my experience has been in content licensing. My licensing territory is outside of the United States, so I am not a specialist for the Arab world. The Americans say that my territory is rest of world, and anytime I'm outside of the United States, I think what a ridiculous thing that is, because the rest of the world is a lot bigger than the United States. Anyway, I have some EBSCO colleagues in the room who I would like to point out. Would you all wave, please? Muhammad, Ali, and Wael. And they have different expertise than I do. So as questions come up, I may refer to them. And please do follow up with them afterwards if you have questions that don't get answered in this room. I live in the state of Massachusetts in the town of Gloucester, which is a small town on the coast. I'm originally from the US state of Oregon, which is very famous for rain. And so I would like to thank you for the rainstorm the other day. It made me feel very comfortable and welcome. Okay. Sir Isaac Newton famously said, "If I see far, it is because I stand on the shoulders of giants." And I think that that saying applies to me today, because in the last 2 days, I have learned so much from the presenters who we've listened to in this room, for which I thank you. And I think that applies as well to the whole open science movement. The idea of open science is that we build, right? We take what has gone before, we get access to it, we understand it, we reuse it, and we advance science or whatever our discipline is. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about EBSCO's various open initiatives. All right. So I guess the first thing I'd like to say is that as I was preparing for this, I took a look at EBSCO's mission statement, which you can see on the screen here. EBSCO transforms lives by providing relevant and reliable information when, where, and how people need it. And this seems to make a lot of sense for what we're doing here. Relevant and reliable. Relevant can mean a lot of things. It means different things to different users. The right subject, the right language, the right level, be you a child or a high school student or an undergrad or a postdoc or a faculty member for that matter. Reliable, well, that's another thing. Is the information whitelisted? Is it blacklisted? Is it from a good source? Is it peer reviewed? These are all things that we need to be able to understand when we choose what information we will rely upon. Whether the information is for fee or whether it's open really doesn't show up in this motto, because for a lot of purposes, we don't care if it is relevant and reliable information, whether it is for fee or not. We do want to make sure that we include it. Now, I think it was Dr. Rael who spoke yesterday about the FAIR research principles, and I was delighted to hear that. Because let's see, I was hoping to talk about them too. And now we're all familiar with them, thanks to his very helpful talk yesterday. So this is also something that we believe in at EBSCO. Information has to be findable. Or for that principle, we'll talk a little bit about discovery and persistent identifiers and search. Accessible. People have to be able to access information, however, wherever they come from, whatever their level of sophistication is. We have to help them if necessary so that they can find the information that is relevant and useful. Information and information systems and softwares should be interoperable. Things need to work together. We can't have a whole bunch of separate boxes and run from one to the other. That's that's in the past. We need everything to click together like Legos. And we're very much in favor of making that work in equitable ways. And then finally, the principle that things should be reusable. Data and metadata should be richly detailed and open licensed. Information that can be found here should be as reusable as the licenses allow. And so I guess I kind of got ahead of myself, but you can see that this is the kind of thing we're talking about. Discovery for findability, search, and providing good data for accessibility. On the side of interoperability and reusability, we're going to see a little bit about our open source project with Folio, and then some of our open educational resources and other projects as well. Oh, and by the way, I'm sorry, I did get ahead of myself. This session was styled as a workshop. And so in the spirit of a workshop, as opposed to a lecture, I'd like to make this interactive. So please, if you have a question, don't hold it to the end. Please, let's talk as we go. My colleagues can help me as needed. And let's answer questions as they come up so that so that we can make a discussion and all learn from each other. Certainly, I have a lot to learn from you. Okay, so first of all, I guess it's come up in a number of our talks that there is a historical bias, kind of an old-fashioned bias against open access. And, people remember a time when it was less reliable than it is now. But we're at a point now where we treat open access really the same as we do for fee content by curating the best content, and we'll see a little bit about how we do that. By using our search technology to find the best results across literally billions of records in our systems. And by including content from many countries in multiple languages and covering an array of topics and of viewpoints. And then, of course, including open access in that package. Something that just came up this morning, but I added this slide earlier because we kind of skimmed across this topic today. I was in law before I came into publishing, and so I thought this would be an interesting point to raise. We talk a lot about open access, and of course, open access materials can easily be grabbed off a website, downloaded, printed out, reused. And of course, there are as well CC licenses that are very broad and give the user permission to download, to reuse in multiple ways. But I want to be very clear that, well, in fact, and in law, open access materials are protected by copyright. Now, as distinct from that, articles that are in the public domain are not. So those are not protected by copyright. It is still ethical to give proper attribution, of course, and we encourage that. But those can be downloaded and reused freely without asking anybody's permission. That is not true in our open access world. And by the way, since I'm in licensing for EBSCO, that's the reason why when we approach publishers of open access materials, we treat them the same in terms of asking for a license, giving us full and detailed permission and explaining how we will use that content and then using it accordingly. Is that point clear? Because I think this is a really important one. I think a lot of people think that if it's open access, then it equals public domain, and it really does not. So perhaps that's clear. Okay, great. Oops. Okay, so just giving kind of a look at the workflow that we have and the application to the FAIR principles. from the beginning of the source, which is my specialty, the content sourcing and licensing, which we intend to do in an equitable way, taking that content and loading it into the products we have, like our discovery services, like the aggregated databases, which you may have experience with, academic search, business source, and so forth. Ranking is added. Subject, the keywords, which we heard a little about keywords earlier today. Thank you. Subjects are highlighted. Those are all added, and metadata is enriched as much as possible for accessibility. And as we're going to see in a moment, we also use a knowledge graph to expand searches. This is part of the equitability that we try to bring to search. I'll show you an example in just a moment. And then we add the best user experience that we can to make things easy to use, easy to download as needed, and then integrate into future projects. So a question that I'm frequently asked is, what does EBSCO do? How do you choose which journals should be included in the indexes and the various EBSCO products? And so just to be clear, I wanted to put that up on the board. These are some of the things that our team looks for. So journals that are in subject indexes. So, we've talked about Web of Science, we've talked about Scopus. Those are certainly things that we like to see. That's kind of the beginning of the process. Also looking for local and regional journal ratings. And so we heard about the Algerian system, for example, that adds ratings, and there are many others. We know about Arab Impact Factor. That is something as well that we're able to look at for this region. Local sources highly relevant to our customers. How do we know that? Well, we ask them. We try to work very carefully with our library customers and talk to them about what they would like to see, what's missing, what else can we do to bring you content that is relevant for your work, for your library, and for your end users. Selected topics. We're not able to accept everything at every time. EBSCO has about 400 topical databases, some of which are for particular fields such as medical, business, corporate, government, as well as for academic. We're not developing all of those at the same time. So if, for example, you have 100 journals and we talk to you about 20 of them, it's not because we think there's anything wrong with the other 80. It's simply because the topics might be a match for projects that we're working on right now. And we might talk to you about the others in the future. And then avoiding predatory journals. So again, going back to that topic of predatory journals, that certainly is on our minds when we're talking about the world of open access. So I wanted to give you just a very quick, skim across the top of how we deal with this. We know that predatory journals exist, and I guess we're concerned because we don't want to do anything that would seem to praise those bad journals or make them look more reliable than they are. So we want to be careful to keep them out of our products, as librarians have asked us to do. I know this slide is quite small, but this shows a couple of our resources. So you can see in the blue Beale's list. It's a little bit old, but that is something that we have traditionally used. Cable's blacklist is in the green here. And are you familiar with that? Cable's, okay. They do really great work by identifying journals and rating them on a number of different points. They're very transparent. And so if something is on their blacklist, they'll tell you exactly why they think it belongs there. They have a whitelist as well. And they keep up to date. So a journal can move from the blacklist to the whitelist if it cures whatever might have been the problems that it had. So they're a great resource. They are a paid resource, and it's certainly worth it to us to use their services, to protect the integrity of our collections that we present to researchers. And then the fourth item in the orange there is DOAJ, DOAJ. I'm learning to say it in Egyptian. DOAJ, again, a great resource. You've heard about it before. There's probably nothing new that I can tell you that you don't already know about it, but really a great resource. Again, something that we look at as an indicator that a journal is one that is reliable and is worth including and sharing with our customers. Just another quick word about the predatory journals, or what's sometimes called the Black open access journals. There are really three categories of journals that we try to avoid. The worst ones are the intentional bad actors. So we know that there are some publishers out there who are just out to make money. They want to get that article publishing charge from the author, and then they'll publish anything. They might say there's peer review, there really isn't. And so the articles they produce are of unverified quality. Some of them might in fact be good, but we don't have a way to know for sure. So we want to be very careful. We don't want to reward the behavior of those publishers. That's the first category. The second category, and we just kind of skimmed that in the previous presentation, is the publishers who might have a bias. So for example, the tobacco company that's funding studies that say, oh, tobacco doesn't cause cancer, but they hide it. Okay, so there's a bias that can't be seen or isn't transparent. We want to be very careful also not to reward that type of behavior, which we see as unethical. Now, the third category is I think very relevant to us here. Publishers who aren't performing at a high level now, but they're new entrants and they're rising. So for example, you might have a group here. We talked about a group of volunteer publishers in the morning session. It's hard for them to have regular publication now. They might miss a few issues. They might not have quite everything that they would like to have, but they're working on it and they're going to get better. And if they're on the blacklist now, they're going to move to the white list, and they're trying to. So we want to keep an eye on those. They might not be at the stage yet where we want to include them, but as they rise, we want to make sure that we do then reward that good work and that improvement. Okay, so we don't have to spend a lot of time here. EBSCO supports DOAJ. As we said, we use them at a whitelist. I think we've had various numbers, but I took from their website 18,364 peer-reviewed open access journals. So we definitely want to see that. We love the mission to increase visibility, accessibility, these wonderful principles we've talking about, regardless of discipline, geography, or language. So very important for access and for equitability. And so that's why EBSCO is a sustaining contributor to DOAJ. And even though I'm not a specialist, since we're here, I do want to highlight some of our wonderful partners here, who I think have been at the conference, Arab Impact Factor certainly, and Iraqi academic scientific journals. Just a couple of examples. There certainly are other wonderful partners in this region who work with us. And I wanted to mention also the specific database that EBSCO has built, which contains information published within this region and also some information from outside that is about this region. So a lot of it is in Arabic, but it is not limited to Arabic language. So if you are interested in learning more about this, you can look at it on our website, and also some of my colleagues over at this table behind the camera will be happy to provide further information. Okay. So if open access content is out there on the web and you can Google it, why would you look at it on EBSCO? Why would it be important for us to include it? We talked about whitelisting. We really try to create a weight search environment so that you're in a place where you know that all of the content has been curated. Whatever you find, you can evaluate it using your own criteria, but you don't have to have that additional concern that you'll be finding a lot of things that are not scientific, that are not reliable. So just some of our reasons there. Also, tying into what we heard a little earlier, we had a wonderful presentation regarding the preprints. And preprints, of course, as we've learned, very important to scientific publishing at this time. Those are included here. At the same time, as a researcher, particularly as a young researcher, perhaps an undergrad, I want to be sure that I am able to find the best existing version of an article. Now, maybe that is the preprint, and that's great. But if there is a peer-reviewed version, I might choose to cite to that. If there's a published version, whether it's open access or not, I might choose to cite to that in my work. And there's lots of reasons why I might want to look at all of them. We actually have a partnership with a company called Unpaywall that helps us to direct the end user to that best existing version. And this is relatively new and I think really a nice service. Gotten ahead of myself again, haven't I? So that assuming that all of these would be available to the user in their library so that we can serve the published one to them and make sure that they know, the user knows what they're getting. Okay, touching back to this idea of equitability in search and accessibility. Here's an example. Oops. Here's an example of a search that I might enter. Let's say that I'm an undergrad. I'm not very experienced, but I've been in a class and they were talking about maglev trains. I want to learn more about this. Maybe I want to develop an idea for a paper. So I go to the search box and I type in maglev. Well, that's a pretty good term, but it's not an ideal term. I could choose, if I was a little more sophisticated, to use terms such as magnetic levitation, electromagnetic suspension, or high-speed train. And what's happening behind the scenes is that our search is pulling from various controlled vocabularies and adding those terms in there anyway, so that my search, which is okay but not great, will get me not just what I asked for, but all of the results that I really wanted. Now, how do I get back to where I was? Okay. Okay, so that's part of our search algorithm that we have behind the scenes. Stepping back for a moment from our full text to our discovery service, this is just with discovery services. A few years ago, we used to talk about it as Google for the contents of a library because it's a very simple way of searching in depth everything that a library holds. As far as how we return the results, though, we want to do that in a way that is equitable, both for the searcher and for the various publishers whose data is included. So these are some of the things that we do. We try to serve new content before old content because, in many fields, the new content will be more relevant. We try to serve peer-reviewed content before unreviewed content. It helps to get to the citable, generally preferred for citation documents. We try to serve substantial articles before brief mentions. So if there's a whole article that's based on some keyword, and if there's something that just mentions it briefly, we'll give you the substantial one first. We don't want to bias your list, your result list, by greater frequency of publication, which would serve you news wires and newspaper articles before quarterly journals. And we don't want to bias in favor of top-level publishers or in favor of for-fee publication. So if you're concerned that open access, high-quality open access articles will be pushed down the list, they won't. If they are relevant to the search, they will come up accordingly. So user experience. Users have expectations, and their expectations look kind of like this. Whatever system they go to, they want it to operate like the things that they use every day on their phone. You know, when I started training people how to use systems, we talked about expert systems, and you had to go to a bunch of classes and you had to learn Boolean search and all of these great things that I still kind of like to do. But I guess I'm the only one. So we have needed to update our interface in order to meet these user expectations. And we've been working on doing that. So the process of doing that is to talk to users, to interact with them, to see what they do, and then to remove any barriers to them actually getting from the beginning of their search to a satisfactory end result. And that has been an interesting process. A lot of the times we, you know, being accustomed to searching, we have an expectation about what, especially undergrads, what they will do. You just have to get in the room with them. And so we spend a lot of time doing that. So this idea is expert research for anyone, anywhere, regardless of their level of sophistication, meaning they're, you know, from little kids to postdocs. Also, you know, hope to be language accessible. That's something that we're working on. We're getting better. We want to support integration with various systems, be it different library systems, library service providers. We want to work across all devices. So that means the computer, the mobile, whatever you have. Authentication. We want to work with various libraries' authentication systems so that access is as seamless as possible. And then we want to ensure accessibility as well, whether our users are sighted or blind, whether they have physical challenges. We want to make accessibility as equitable as possible. Okay, so, you know, this is all great, but what does this particularly have to do with open content? Well, we apply these principles to all of our products, even the products we produce that are free and open to the world, of which there are some. And I'd like to introduce, if you haven't seen it already, EBSCO Essentials. So this is a product that any user anywhere can use. You don't have to belong to a university. You don't have to authenticate. It's just there. EBSCO Essentials is intended to be a showcase for open access content and kind of a white list for the world to use. For this sample search, I typed in something that I thought was pretty current, bivalent COVID vaccine. And I found some free and open access articles that I can read on the spot. And this is whether I'm on a, you know, cell phone, computer, whatever. Again, I don't have to be a university student. This can be just anybody without authentication. Now, we are in the process of building this out. So my team is calling publishers and asking them to participate in this. Like I said earlier, we want to be sure whether open access or whether paid, that we get full permission from publishers whenever we do something. So we are asking them to opt into this. This also does contain metadata for some paid materials, by the way, but full text for open access. So kind of a neat way of reaching out to the community. And then if people are interested and if they are affiliated with an institution, they can authenticate from here and then go into the whatever EBSCO resources their library has. Okay, that's one of our free products. Another free product is called Open Dissertations, and this might be familiar to some of you. There was a little discussion yesterday of dissertations and making them more open and more available. And this is a product that is a partial solution to that, not a full solution, because the gentleman yesterday was talking in part about local mandates to make them open. But what we have here is a search. So we have an interface and institutions can send us the links. So you can see the URLs. I guess I can't. Can I point? And what's nice about that too, when we think about open research, is that this can link not only to the text of the dissertation, but if it's there, it can link as well to that whole digital knowledge stack that we've talked about, the protocols, the data, whatever's the open source software, whatever's available. So that can all hypothetically be included. Something else that's rather nice about this is it's linking out to various institutional repositories. So in a way, really increasing the value of those repositories by making them more accessible. Now, this is a product that is going to be developed in a couple of years. I want to just give you that as a way of controlling expectations. It's kind of small now. It's not small, but it's smaller than it's going to be. We're going to move it to a different team for some development. And at that time, we will be able to accept a lot more materials. So if you happen to be looking for a place to provide exposure for your institution's dissertations, get in touch with us. It may be a couple of years, but this may be a solution. So that's something we can talk about. And there is no charge for the institution. Oh, yes, please. Any intersection with the ProQuest database. I'm sure there's overlap in the content. ProQuest, I don't know a lot about their products. I understand that they do have a dissertation database that is not free. Yeah, I'm sure that there must be some overlap in the content, but ours is completely independent of that. And it is free. I'm sorry, that's not a very detailed answer. My friend, Mr. Ali, might be able to give you further details. I'm sorry, are there other questions? All right, thank you. Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Now, I had a question about your free open access database. That full text that you're directing people to, is that actually hosted on your platform?
That's
or
correct.
Are you linking to the publisher? So you're hosting, you're sort of integrating that content into your own platform. Are you providing publishers then with usage statistics for that data that you're using from them, or
Yes.
how does that work?
Yeah, so that's talking about EBSCO Essentials.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, yes. So in the case of EBSCO Essentials, let me go back. Yes, so this is content that is hosted on EBSCO Host. It is on the version of EBSCO Host that's behind the paywall, and it's also here outside the paywall. Okay, so that's how we're able to do that. And yes, we do provide usage statistics at no charge. And then open dissertations is different. We do not host this content. This just links out to the IRs. Is that responsive?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a remote if anyone wants it, not remote microphone. Does anyone have any other questions?
Please. Okay.
We'll just give a round of applause to our workshop.
Oh, are we done?
Oh, I don't know. Does anyone have any other questions? Oh, there are questions. Brilliant.
I have more if we have time.
Yeah.
Oh, but please,
There is a
have the
question first, though. We have one.
I just want to ask Mary about the Arabic dissertations. Why EBSCO didn't allow Arab researchers to upload their English abstract of Arab PhD or master to just say we are here. There is a research, there is a master or a PhD in Arabic, but we will upload the abstract in English. EBSCO didn't allow this.
Ali?
Actually, open dissertation from EBSCO is open to anybody. So you can upload your metadata for your dissertation anytime you want. If you have any technical problem uploading Arabic content, so please contact us and we will be able to help you. So, but it's searchable in not both language, many languages, including Arabic, English, and another 14 languages. So I think there is any technical problem, so we can help you.
In 2020, I tried to upload my English abstract for the Arabic dissertation, but it not allowed. He asked me, is your dissertation in Arabic? In English, I said no. It put a list, English, French, German, not Arabic. There is no Arabic.
Okay.
Okay,
No problem.
if I may,
Okay.
I think the problem is that we're in an old interface now and we're going to be switching to a new one very shortly. The language of the documents should not be an issue because we don't host the content.
Yes.
Okay,
I also-
so I want to get your information. Let's stay in touch because it may take a little bit of time before we do the development. And we're not adding anything to this product at this time. So it's not because it's Arabic, we're not adding anything at this moment. But after this product moves to a different team, which should happen in a few months, I think we will open it up for new content. And at that time, I want Arabic content in here too.
Thank you, Mary.
Okay, so
Thank
please make sure we have your information.
Well, we've got another 10 minutes or so. So
Okay, okay, yeah, so if I have some other things I'd like to
Question
talk about
first.
too. Okay, yes.
In a previous slide, we're talking the terms from IEEE vocabulary and LCSH. What about Arabic articles? In a previous discussion, we told that the articles in Arabic language is available in EBSCO, open access journals. The term is how will be retrieved.
Ali,
Keywords.
can you touch on whether we can expand terms in Arabic?
Arabic language, EBSCO actually for same as English. For example, we don't have any problem to search the Arabic grammar. الألف المكسورة والتاء المربوطة ما بعرف كل هالتفاصيل هذه كلياتها even for مذكر جمع مذكر السالم والمؤنث السالم والتكسير. Yes, even for the subject heading
هل احنا بنرجع لقائمة رؤوس موضوعات عربية علشان نعمل ضبط المصطلحات
يعني
ولا؟
حوالي 12,000 رأس موضوع باللغة العربية موجود. على سبيل المثال في حال أنا بدي فتش على كلمة مصحف، أوكي، بيعطيني ارتكل حتى لو كان رأس الموضوع قرآن، فمصحف قرآن نفس رأس الموضوع.
اوكي.
أي صحيح، مرادفات. فعندنا بحدود 12,000 رأس موضوع ومرادفات ممكن تبحثي فيهم من دون أي مشكلة.
قائمة رؤوس موضوعات بقى منين؟
عفوا،
هي يعني دي اعتمادا على
اعتمادا على كثير من المصادر العربيه. ما بعرف تكنيكلي كيف او انا مش ماني لايبراريان حتى انا جاوب بهالموضوع.
الاوثر
author keywords بس بعد للاسف بعض المجلات بالعالم العربي يعني ما عم بتكون الاندكسنج محسن لحتى يحوي على راس الموضوع والكيورد وهالتفاصيل هذه كلها. فابسكو بتعتمد قدر المستطاع ما بنقدر نكون مثل الانجليش عندنا الحريه لنعالج هالمواضيع هيدي، ولكن ممكن نحن نعالج بعض الثغرات الموجوده او من الميتا داتا بتوصلنا من عند صحيح من ادد كيورد او راس الموضوع. بعض الاحيان ما بيكون عندنا هالفلكسبيليتي بناء على اتفاقيه مع الناشر. شكرا. Thank you. شكرا.
Okay, thank you. I hope that was responsive. I'd like to share a couple of other things that we have, still staying in line with our fair open access principles. This is another product that this is one that that universities need to opt into, but it provides faculty members with open educational resources. So that's why this one is a little different. So this product is called Faculty Select. It contains open access books, textbooks, educational resources, and a bunch of other resources as well. And the idea is that these are things that faculty can use with students to supplement their regular textbook or whatever they would normally use. These are things that can be shared through a learning management system or in any other way in the classroom. And the contents of this database are open, copyright cleared, and DRM free. So we talked about copyright or public domain a little while ago. So these are materials where the end user doesn't need to worry about copyright. It's taken care of. These can be shared for educational purposes. And I also want to touch on this idea of DRM free. We work a lot with books, ebooks, and in North America and Europe, we find a lot of publishers choosing to sell ebooks on a DRM-free basis. And we don't see that happening yet in this region. And there could be a lot of reasons for that. But I just do want to share this piece of information with you, that at this time, last I checked, we're representing nearly 300,000 books that are DRM free from 169 different publishers, including some of the top international publishers. You can see perhaps some of the subject areas that they publish in. Now, when we talk about DRM free, the idea is to remove barriers. We want it to be very easy for the end user to get to the content of the book so they can use it. We know how undergrads are. We know how we are some of the time. If I have to go through 10 steps, if I have to go through 5 steps to get to content, I might never get there. But if it's very easy, if it's 1 or 2 clicks, yeah, I'll do that. I'll go take a look. I will use that resource. We want people to use library resources, and that's why libraries embrace DRM free. Publishers want to get usage so that libraries will continue to maintain and buy more of their products because usage shows value. So that's why DRM free is a good proposition for many publishers. Now, technically, when we say DRM free, it's kind of DRM light, because what we do is we make books available to the university library on a multiple user basis so that anybody who can authenticate through that university library can then gain access to the book. And then they can save, they can download, they can do a number of different things with that. So it's not technically 100% DRM free, but it is very free usage for people who are, who do have the authority to use that book. So a model that's kind of new in this territory, but probably something that's coming because it is working very well in other territories. So talking about books and libraries, I would like to also mention Folio. In our last session, there was some discussion of open source, another very important part of the overall open movement. And Folio is an open source, what do we call it? LSP, library management system. This is relatively new. We've been working on it for several years, and just very recently, the American Library of Congress adopted it. So that's a pretty big milestone for us. What's nice about this, of course, it is cheaper than some of the out-of-the-box solutions. What we really love about it, though, is that it removes barriers to choice. A library need not reorganize its functions so that it fits a library management software. You get the basics of Folio, and then you're able to purchase or develop or get apps from a bank that do what you want them to do. So it's very much like the user interface that we were talking about a moment ago, intended to be app-based, intuitive, easy, and adaptable. And again, in the spirit of openness, this doesn't force you to work with other branded products. This works with everybody's stuff, not just with EBSCO. This is not officially an EBSCO product, but we do support it because we support this mission. All right. So just a quick recap. Support of open publishing, transparent discovery, EBSCO essentials and open dissertations, free to the world products, open educational materials that can be reused in classrooms, the idea of DRM free for books and probably eventually other materials, and then open source in the context of library software. So these are some of the ideas that we're developing and continuing to work on in support of the open movement. And thank you. So yes.
Yes, I have a very quick question. Thank you for the presentation. I just was curious about back to the dissertations. Do universities need to sign up so that you can harvest their data, or is it automatically harvesting the
Automatic harvesting.
All right.
Universities need to opt in.
All right. Okay.
And as I understand it, universities need to share the URLs with us. And then, as I said, we don't host the dissertations. We link to them in the repository where they are, be it just the document or the whole data stack.
Are there any criteria that we need to meet for that to happen, to be discovered using?
No particular criteria in terms of language or format or anything like that. Just a caution that we're not ready to accept them right now because the product is in transition. So it may be, a year or up to 2 years before we're ready. But we are very interested. I am personally interested. So please, let's get in touch so that we're able to make this happen when it is possible.
Okay, thank you.
Are hosting your dissertation. If you are, for example, using repositories, then we can harvest the metadata, but not the PDF or full text. So we have the ability to do that based on your infrastructure.
That's very good.